I've never been a great fan of the elective process, being an anarchist at heart. In my view, we should all be able to recognize what we ought to be, and we should work towards that. That said, I recognize there are people who seem unable to do that. As such, I understand leadership and the need to change it when it seems called for. Today, I want to talk about how that idea fits into my being a Christian. I want to say, by the way, I started out with how my being a Christian fits into that idea, but it's actually the opposite. It's how that idea fits into my being a Christian. Hello, this is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Saturday, the 16th of January of 2021. Many people count this the start of the weekend. Some people say Friday, but whatever. Hope you're enjoying your weekend one way or another. Glad to have those of you on board who are coming on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you for being there for me. The subject of today's little video and associated podcast, etc., will be Christianity and voting, as I've said. I've said before, and I'll say it again. Time whizzes by at an alarmingly fast rate. Sometimes things change radically as we grow older, ideas and so forth. Some barely change at all. Funnily, my position on voting hasn't changed, but my reasons for my position have changed pretty dramatically. I've never been a great fan, as I say, of the voting process, of the elective process. And there are a number of reasons for this, but one of them that I've seen is that it tends to be too easy for that process to become corrupted by various things going on. So I've said many times, if you don't have the money to get yourself into the primary as a major party contributor, not contributor, but a major party player in the presidential election, and this also happens in congressional elections on a national level and probably on a local level to some degree at all. If you don't have the money to begin with to get yourself into those primaries, you're not going to be part of that process. And then you actually have to be somebody after that people actually decide they want. And that's the better part of the process, even though a lot of times, in my opinion, that part is pretty badly broken. But the point is, to get there in the first place, you have to be somebody that people back enough to where your name becomes popular. And then the sad thing is, what happens with a lot of people is they get in office and they stay there for extended periods of time because there are no term limitations on their ability to do so. Now, there are problems with that, and one of the problems is that they learn how to work or game the system in order to accomplish ends that they want to accomplish. But the thing that I wanted to talk about today is where I, as a Christian, stand in the process, the elective process, whether it be in the United States or elsewhere, and regardless for what office it is. I wanted to say that my perspective, my viewpoint is that I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I haven't lost my train of thought or anything. I'm just trying to think of the best way to put this. The thing is this. It's my opinion that you as a Christian should seek to be a servant to others. That's what you ought to be. Part of servitude, if you will, is not electing people in positions of power over them. I grant you that, for example, in the United States, the concept of the elected body in the United States is that they be servant to the people. The unfortunate reality is that is virtually never what happens. What happens instead is you end up with a bunch of people who lord it over the folks around them, and some of them do it with horrible amounts of disdain, distaste for the people that they supposedly represent. And so the point is then that you as a Christian can participate in that elective process, but you have to understand that you're doing so makes it so that you're probably going to help to put somebody into a position of authority, really of authority, who will lord it over the people that he or she is intended to serve and represent. This is a major problem, right, for me. And it's the reason that I don't vote. Never have, never will. I don't think. Maybe that'll change. But the truth is, even if I go back to being a non-Christian, and by the way, I wanted to say about my being a Christian, I got thinking about this. I've been in the Little Rock area, the place where I am, Little Rock, Arkansas, for about the last 25 years, really near to it, if not there. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, when did I become a Christian? And I realized that it was before I left the Air Force. In fact, it was really a big part of the reason I did leave the Air Force. I really took on Christianity in around 1989, 1990 timeframe. So it's been 30 plus years that I've been a Christian. And I thought to myself, it's amazing what things have happened in my life since then, and a lot of the reasons for what I do have changed, even though a lot of what I do has not changed substantially. Some of it has, and some of it has even changed quite substantially, but most of it hasn't changed at all, or very little. The reasons I do what I do, the reasons I am what I am, those things have changed. But the things themselves, for the most part, I was what I have heard others referred to as a Christian without Christ before I took on Christianity. So the reasons have changed substantially for the ways I act, but many of the ways I act are actually roughly the same as they were before I became a Christian. Okay, some of them again have changed. But here's the thing. Before I was a Christian, I came to the conclusion that the process of elections was too easily tainted, and that the best way to deal with that is to stay out of it. I know a lot of people will disagree with me, saying you're the reason that people get elected who are not to your taste. But the reality of that is that's going to happen anyway, whether you like it or not. More importantly, though, as I took on Christianity, I began to realize that it wasn't my right or my position to lord it over other people, to look down my nose at folks. I can be put in a leadership position. I can even ask to be in a leadership position because I personally can serve in that leadership position. That is, I can be a servant to those people for whom I am technically leadership. I can do that, right? So that's not really a problem for me. Where the problem comes in is when I put somebody else in a position of leadership and that person chooses to act in ways that are untoward, incorrect, improper, tyrannical, and various other things. And the problem is you can't say what those other people are going to do. In fact, you can't even tell them what they're going to do except by booting them out of office when they do that. And the problem is most of them seem pretty well predisposed to exactly that sort of unfortunate behavior. That's what they seem to want to do and want to be. There are some who are not there, and I grant that that's true. And I could name names, but I'm not even going to take the time to do that at this point. That's not what this video is about. This video is to explain to you why I, as a Christian, do not vote. And I want to add one more thing. I want to put one more piece in here. You see me talk a lot about various things, some of them to do with politics, okay? And you might ask yourself why a person who refuses to vote, who considers that a wrong thing, talks about, particularly about politics. Well, about a lot of the other stuff I talk, to begin with, I should say mostly it's about values and morals and so forth, and therefore it's not really related to politics directly. It's indirectly related, but it's not directly so. With regard to things political, I've said this before and I'll say it again. My reason for talking about these things is to make it so that other people have a more perfect understanding of those things with which they are dealing. If I don't speak up, there are people out there who will never know certain things, or it'll take far too long for them to realize certain things are true, and so forth. So my position with regard to all of that is to make sure that what I do is make things clear to other people. And so I'll talk about things like not wanting government to have as little influence as possible, and that's particularly true as you get up higher in the levels of government, like, for example, for the federal government as opposed to local governments. I personally don't like government mostly involved in life at all. I think for the most part, it's not a reasonable thing. There are certain ways in which it is, but for the most part, in my view, that is not the case. So I want you to understand, this is where I stand. I do not vote. That's not something I'm probably going to take on. I will continue to talk about values, and I will continue to talk about things political, and I'll do so from the perspective that it will help other people to understand those things better. It's not about my being some sort of expert, but time has a way of showing you things and making it so that you know things that are important. Okay, today is, as I say, Saturday, the 16th of January of 2021. Tomorrow then will be the 17th of January, and it'll be Sunday, 2021. Again, obviously, the year won't change. And I'm going to go ahead and try and get another another podcast of the Daily Summation out tomorrow from Kurt's Religion and Politics. And hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Saturday, the 16th of January of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.